Hello, 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 hello. Good morning, Patrick. How are you this morning? Yay, Trump's speaking of Bitcoin. Fantastic. Well, you gotta get Tether out of Bitcoin. Then we'll start talking. Bowman, who was talking earlier today, was talking a couple hours ago. Fed not yet at the point where it's appropriate to cut rates. Yeah, okay. Good morning, Sterling. So you can read Bowman's comments in here. As inflation declines, we'll then need to lower rates again. I don't know why we bother with the Fed. Just let's do something. What else do we have here? Cocoa's pulling back. Not 20K cocoa, but actual cocoa futures. And what do we have? Oh, we're doing more vaccines in Finland, right? Yep. Avian flu, yay, more vaccines for us. How exciting. What else? Hey, good morning, Legion Reaver. Good morning, McRangers. Hey, Houston Buyers Club. Good morning, John. Good morning, Heinrich. Good morning, Tony. Hey, John, thanks for calling out Sterling. Good morning, Jacob. Good morning, Ted. Good morning, Charles. Eric, good morning. I'm the best. I don't know about that. I don't know where I sit in this all scheme of thing. I'm just trying to help people. Good Grand Rising, Christoph. Please don't get vaccinated. I know people who got severe adverse reactions to it. Hey, not looking for vaccines at all. But what are we looking for today? We already had the Chicago Net Fed National Activity Index coming out with a slight bounce. Forecast to be negative, coming out slight positive. Red Book still coming out with decent numbers. I'm surprised that hasn't gone more in the dumpster yet. Home prices still up, still increasing. We have consumer confidence coming out at 10 Eastern. At 10 Eastern, so in under just an hour, we have Richmond Fed Manufacturing and Services Index. We have Dallas Services Index. We got Cook speaking. Is that another Bowman speaking again? So we got a couple regional indices and consumer confidence coming out. But we've had a 3-day pullback, so starting to watch for at least a slight bounce. NVIDIA, after it's about 20% pullback in 3 days, getting a bounce. Now we can identify the key levels in NVIDIA. It's got some heavy lifting to do. Heavy lifting to do to get back to its highs. So I'm going to be watching for rollover plays there. But we got Tesla, shock. Tesla up on another Cybertruck recall, and Tesla higher. Wow, that's such a weird coincidence. Whenever there's bad news, Tesla rallies. Technology leading the bounce, healthcare, basic materials, and consumer defensive pulling back. Still, we're pausing in July and favoring a cut in September. Fear and greed still in fear. Even with this multi-day pullback, Schiller PE is still 35.48. Today, FedEx after the close, I'm paying close attention to that. And then tomorrow morning, General Mills, just from an inflationary standpoint, from a food thing. And then Micron after the close tomorrow. All right. So, good morning, Royal Palms. What was this? What did I miss? Alanis Morissette? Oh. Then you have Stanley Cup and lower rates, inflation picked up. Oh, that's where that Alanis Morissette came in. Good day, Christoph. Yeah. All right, so we've essentially pulled back to the daily rotation zone, keeping a really close eye. Still 5,000 to 5,005 is very key support on any pullback. The little areas now we'll look at for a bounce. Remember, we got the key the key numbers coming out Thursday and Friday. So really nice area. If we do bounce, I'm using these harmonic levels. If we start breaking about 55.30, I'm going 55.40. We got a cluster. Then 55.49, so 55.50, which lines up with a prior key top. It was spiked through yesterday, and then that spike hit the 62.5. So this sets it up very nicely from my perspective. Then that's 55.58, 55.59. So that's what I'll be watching on a closing basis if it can even bounce that high. But going into on the first key rally area will be 55.40 roughly. If we did break below 55.09, it's that 55.05 to 5500 is very key support. Very key support. If we roll over below that, then it's 54. This is the longer term one, about 54.70. NASDAQ also closing in the rotation zone yesterday. Remember, we had the contract roll gap. So if you're just looking at the September contract, you won't see that, but this is using a non-adjusted method. So what do we want to watch for here? Well, keeping a close eye. If it does roll down, if we break through this 19,725 area, the magnet price is still, you can still use magnet prices from the contract roll, which would be about 19,610. To the upside, keeping a close eye on 19,890, then roughly 19,970, then 20,050. And then the key on a closing basis is 2129. So that's what I'm watching. Officially triggering this wedge, but I'm going to watch for this bounce and then another rollover play. We're getting back to daily cycles going into the bottom, going into these numbers. They're not bottoming yet, but weekly still at a top. It's going to get very interesting towards the end of this week. The Dow, we remember we closed back above the 62.5 last Thursday, and we hit the 87.5 yesterday. We had a strong rotation into the Dow. You have a little lopsided, not double, so don't try to treat that as a double. The Dow, very minor support coming in at about 39,685, major support coming in at 39,600. To the upside, again, I keep using 39,950, and if it breaks through there, you're looking at roughly about 40,050, and then very key resistance 40,130. Russell still caught in no man's land. Resistance 2063. Major support coming down around 2035. The VIX still going into the numbers. This week will probably remain elevated going into GDP and PCE numbers Thursday and Friday. But if we travel towards 13, we'll watch for a little more sustained bounce. If we stay where we're at, we'll watch for possibly a slight upside, but a choppier upside. The DAX, still the key level for a continued rally versus another rollover is 18,622, 18,662, 18,622. 18,622 is the key level. I'm still watching for another rollover play in the DAX, although we're at cycle bottoms, so it's getting a little iffier, but we'd have to get back down below 18K to confirm anything there. The notes, again, going into the key numbers, really not watching for much in here. There's no fantastic setup besides the longer term. We still have a slight bias the upside. Key support 110.10, resistance 110.28. The yields, same difference. Not much to talk about here just yet. Very key support at 4.2. Very key resistance at about 4.28. Dollar index returning yesterday to the rotation zone and trying to rotate back up. Remember, we still have a magnet price. Now, this probably won't have a ton of movement until Thursday, Friday. Key support in the minor coming in at 105. Key resistance at 105.50. Crude. So we're cycles rolling over, trying to come out of overbought, but so far a sideways correction. Really not much to talk. Not able yet to close above the 62.5. So remember, 82 on a closing basis. Gold is, again, probably going to stall out till Thursday, Friday time frame. Just for the longer term, we're at cycle bottom. So I'm watching now. Remember, the double top never got triggered and became invalidated, extended too far to the right. But there's no great buy setup just yet. If it starts breaking above about 23.80 with momentum going in later this week, that's what's going to be key from my perspective. Silver, also just sitting here, nothing to talk about there. Yen had a little sharp, quick sell-off yesterday and then a bounce back. The Bank of Japan cannot be happy with this, but nothing else has changed. So watch, keeping a close eye for intervention. Euro still has the potential double in play. However, if it comes down back below 106.91, that will be off the table. So watching that to see if that goes off the table, then I have to keep the stronger bias in the dollar to the upside. Bitcoin coming down, closing yesterday below the 62.5, but already tapping the 87.5. Still with Bitcoin, now we have a key overhead resistance. Remember, you still have a massive potential weekly pattern in place. This has not been invalidated yet. Needs a close below 56,500. So that'd be a key longer term line in the sand for me. Spiders. Again, 544.05 on a rollover, 542.75 areas to the gap fill yesterday. That would be yesterday's close. And then the very major supporters were about 540.50, 540.75. To the upside on the spiders, it's got to start getting really above about 544.75. And then you still have a magnet price of 546.98 to the upside. And you can use your harmonics here too. If you're looking at the harmonics, it's going to be 546.38 before that full gap fill. It did not hit yesterday. It spiked up. It did not get the full gap fill. So I'd use 546.38, then the gap fill to 546.98, and then the key on the closing basis is 547.31. On the Qs, on any downside, we have the gap fill to yesterday, 473.96, and then below that, the key price is 472. To the upside, again, harmonics. 476.33 is trading right now. 478.70, which is a really nice area to watch for. Going, that's also Friday's low. And then we have 480.33 is the next 50% harmonic. Then you need 481.96 on a closing basis. So those are the key levels there. And NVIDIA closing below the daily rotation zone. Would not be surprised to see a bounce. But NVIDIA now, since we can do the harmonic levels, really above 132. What is the key level? 132.24. 132.25 is key on a closing basis. Beyond that, if you're looking for stuff in the shorter term, the gap down open from yesterday is going to be a key price, 123.24. And then on a rally up above that, you have the close from Friday, which roughly lines up with the 37.5% harmonic, 126.57, and then 129.40. Good morning, Royal Palms. So those are the key levels there. By the way, Apple, remember, officially hit the first target, tried to bounce off of Meta partnership stuff for AI, but then got sold off there. Hit the first target there. So the new trailing stop for any short things with that, remember, it's into the rotation zone, so it's a lower probability kind, but it's 215.10 on a closing basis or 216.80 on a trade through basis. All right. Really, there's not much else to talk about. There is not much else to talk about. One of two. BBU owns CDK, the company who's been hit with ransomware that has shut down a lot of car dealerships' ability to do business. BBU. Well, I did not know that. I don't think I've ever looked at BBU. Wow. Take a look at the chart. It has triggered a weekly upward sloping neckline, head and shoulders that is approaching third target down. Thoughts? Well, thoughts, if you're going to watch another key area, let's just take a look at this. Yeah, it is. So then it'd be 1654. If it continues lower, if it closes below 1654, especially if it follows through with a close on that on a weekly basis, it could easily go and retest the area of October's lows, last October's lows. Also keep in mind at this point, you know, this is an area, but you have the overhead rotation zone, you have the overhead 200, so any bounce, and if they resolve this, you know, it might get a bounce, but really, if it can't sustain 1654, I'd watch out below. Can we look at BITO? The Bitcoin Strategy ETF, which you see how often I take a look at that. Key line in the sand there is 2067. There's no strong buy. You might get a bounce again with Bitcoin bounce, but any bounces, I'm still watching for a rollover play unless something changes in the short term. Still getting very oversold at the 200. So my key line in the sand, if I was looking at this, would be 2067 on a closing basis. Other than that, you're coming into some key support, so I would not be surprised to see a bounce. But it's got some heavy lifting to do to get back into some kind of, then there's no bullish setup, so there's nothing yet. You're only here for the rants, huh? Well, there's no rant today. There's nothing to rant about. So that's really about it. I'm really focused on the last half of this week. I'll watch the regional numbers coming out today, but again, I'm watching for bigger setups going into Thursday and Friday. And just not doing stupid going into those days, because that's going to be the movers. That's going to be the movers. We're coming out of a possible area for a bounce, at least today and tomorrow, but I'm going to be watching to see what kind of setups we go in with Thursday, Friday. Christoph, J&J triggered a double bottom with third target lining up with the 200 SMA. J&J, thank you. Let's take off the old. J&J triggered the double bottom. Yes, it did. Yeah. Let me see where that flips around with the harmonics too. From the whole big sell-off. Yeah, that's a nice, that could be a nice target. That's a little sloppy on the double, but still works. Still works. So again, your targets, I'm going to just see where that lines up with. I'd probably just be a little more, I'd make a target area right around this 153.36 to 153.92, and you got a gap still left behind there. So I'd split the difference and use a gap for a final third target, this key price right there, 153.50. But thank you for pointing that out, Christoph. HD2, did you look at it yet? No, I did not look at HD. That's, you had this other one, but this is, I would not, that's just not a good weekly double. Would not be looking at that. The only other thing was this was a horribly sloppy thing, but you know, I'd be careful if you're trying to do a bunch of up stuff on this HD. If you're trying to use this as a weekly double, would not, the key targets for any upside I'd use is 360.18 and 369.24. That is just too ugly. It violates too many separate rules. All right. With that, let's just peek at the S&P going into the open. S&P going into the open really needs to sustain something above this 55.30 before I can even get short-term bullish, and then the targets are still 55.40. Pullback level still 55.20. It's just the way the numbers work today. With that, I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I shall talk to everyone tomorrow. Bye for now.